Hello, my fellow Alaskans. How are we all doing out there today? It is great to see you on this bright and beautiful Thursday afternoon. I am here today with candidate Meghan Trupp, who is running for Assembly District 2. And I'll bring her here in on the cam with us both here just a second. And she is running for candidacy in Assembly District 2 in the MatSu Valley. For my fellow Alaskans out there that are not aware, there is a dual election going on here on November 8th. We have it both on the state level and on the municipal borough level here, and we are going to be voting on assembly members, school board members, and ballot measure 1, which happens to be ballot measure 1 on the state level, and also a different ballot measure 1 on the local MatSu level for the borough. And I'm going to be quiet here, tell you all real quickly to please like and share this video. You can find this live right now on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook here at Politadick and Politadick Unfiltered. And you can also find it live on our website at politadick.com. Any of your favorite ways to be able to watch this, go ahead, start on it right now, get there, and make sure you like and share and subscribe and hit that notification bell. I am going to go ahead and bring Meghan onto the screen here and get myself off of it, and we'll be back in just a second. Meghan, introduce yourself. Tell us why you're running, what got you into this political mess, and just give us the juicy details of what got you all started.
For sure. So my name is Meghan Trupp. I'm born and raised here in the MatSu Valley, and the last couple of years, when it comes to politics, it was really a wake-up call, and I think it was a wake-up call for everyone in terms of how much power the government has and what government is willing to do, and it made me realize I need to pay attention more when it comes to politics. So I did what any millennial would do. I first started out with a meme page, actually. I started the Eskimo Libertarian in promoting libertarian ideas and how to reduce government in terms of its power over ourselves, our bodies, the way we do our every day-to-day things. And then the more I got into it, the more I saw the government spending and how it's out of control and where our taxes actually go. And so from that, I have learned more and more when it comes to politics. And this is actually the first opportunity that I can run for office and see if I can make a change when it comes to being at the table when things are being done. And so not just shouting from the sidelines and using humor through memes to bring about libertarian ideas. And so here I am running for MatSu Assembly District 2 and hoping to start at the local level. I really believe when it comes to making big change, you have to start at the local level and build from there. That's how we're going to make a grassroots change to everything that's been going on these past couple of years.
So as with most of the stuff that we got going on within the state, my first question I love to ask everyone out there is, what do you think about the Constitutional Convention? Are you a yes vote or are you a no vote? And tell us why in either direction. The more details you can give, the better off we are, because we're only hearing pretty much the one side that has the $3 million flooding into the Vote No campaign, and we're not hearing much from the about $40,000 in comparison Vote Yes that is going on with that. So where do you stand with the con?
Yeah, when it comes to the Constitutional Convention, I am actually in favor of having one. I believe there's enough checks and balance in place for the Constitutional Convention that I feel safe that nothing crazy out there outside of the Overton window is going to be passed. There's definitely some things we need to take a look at. It's been a while since we've taken a look at this, and I think it gives people more power because you aren't, I believe too many people think legislators are going to be part of this con, and really it's going to be delegates that we vote upon. It's going to be the people, and who better to go fix what's going on than not politicians that have been screwing it up this whole time. So I'm actually going to be a yes vote on that.
And is there anything in particular that you really want to see changed in the Constitution, or something that you would like to see addressed when they have the con?
So the clause about education spending, I believe we need to open it up more to allow more of a school voucher system. I believe that would really help with our education system up here in Alaska. We have, I believe, more than 60% of our students up here are less than proficient in reading, writing, and math. And over 50% of the students coming out of the MatSu Borough that go and further their education in UAA have to take remedial classes. And so I believe we need to change the way that we are funding, the way we do education up here. Obviously, we're failing our kids. Our kids are our most precious demographic. They're the future of Alaska. And we need to make sure that us as adults, we aren't failing these kids. So going into that a bit, yeah, that may be one of the more things that I'm passionate about.
Okay, you opened it up, so I'm going to go ahead and get right into the next part because it's very relevant to what you just got done saying. Education. And the MatSu Borough, that is 2/3 of the entire budget that is spent as the assembly. And it has a lot of funds that come directly from our taxes from our properties. More money that is applied on the state level from those coming from Juneau. And then you have the matching funds that are coming from the federal level that all comes into the school district to be able to pay for the education. We currently have a school board that is trying to right the wrongs of the education system in the MatSu Valley and bring it more back to reading, writing, arithmetic, sciences, stuff like that, back to the core processes of an education versus what I like to call the woke indoctrination that we're currently been seeing within our school districts. What, as an assembly person, would you recommend to do or suggest to pay for supporting what the school board is currently doing? And I say it that way in regards to every time that they remove another piece of the woke indoctrination from the curriculum, that's one more federal dollar that is no longer coming to them because that's where that money was being applied to.
Right. I believe we can actually save a lot of money by doing more of a school choice program. So currently we're spending roughly $16,000 per student. And if you were to look at private schools, that would be a nice private school. So we need to look at how we're spending our money in terms of that. I am not scared to go against the cost of compliance is what I call it. So that is, in order to get this money, you have to do this. DC doesn't know what is best for our students. We need to have more control in that. And when it comes to curriculums that people are not happy about, what you had referenced to, like woke curriculum, some people know it as CRT. There's other names for it.
Diversity, inclusion, and equity is the new rebranding of CRT.
Exactly. So whenever if a school board was to, ban CRT or other curriculums that are among that category, it's just called something else. It's rebranded as something else, and it doesn't actually go away. So I would like more of a free market solution with school vouchers, with school choice, because then the people will choose what school system they want to go to. And also it relieves the educators. There's a lot of educators that have burnt out over the past couple of years with COVID and whatnot. And opening it up to this school choice program, they break free from the cookie cutter curriculum and can cater to each individual student. Also, it opens up to how many students you can have in a classroom. So do you need someone that needs more one-on-one time, or do they thrive in a group setting? So having more to choose from in a free market sort of education system would be far more beneficial for our kids, and we could save a lot of money that way. If you look at where a lot of our money is going, I may get some hate for this, but when it comes to, for example, our school superintendent, he's paid almost twice the national average, but yet we aren't having results of 2 times better than the national average. So a lot of administration costs and bureaucrat costs are in there. So are we going to see those decrease so that way they can cater to a school voucher system? Also, I see a lot of school programs such as charter schools and homeschools, immersion schools, all types of schools that are doing better than our traditional brick and mortar schools, and they are struggling for funding, but they're churning out amazing students, and I would
Quality would be a very good example out here of the homeschool program that is expanded exponentially. In fact, they've been, I think you're very aware of it. I've seen several of the school board meetings where it's been at, where they're wanting quite a few $1 million to build a bigger homeschool that will supply, say, a gym and an actual lunchroom and things like that. One of the biggest holdups is the money is not following the students. Not all of it anyways. Most of it's still being locked into the public school system, and all the money is not following the student when they enter into the homeschool program.
Exactly. I would like to see our money have more accountability, stretch further, and follow the students so that way they have the quality education that they need, because that is our future. We want to have a successful future. The MatSu Valley is growing quite rapidly, and we need to make sure that we have a diversity of education as well. So we look into the trades. You have career tech, and they have different trades that you can go into, not pushing people to go just to college. There's a multitude of occupations that don't require college, but maybe they require trade or apprenticeship. So looking at that diversity of education, quality of education, I believe can be achieved more through a school choice sort of system.
I agree with you. Since my daughter was born and started going to school, I've applied the school choice that we do have available here in Alaska, where anywhere that's within the MatSu Valley, basically, as long as there is a busing system that picks up at mine to take them to a home school, there's a bus that's at that home school that will take them to the alternative schools. Like, say out here it'd be American Charter is not in my geographic areas, but the home school would have been Big Lake Middle School at Houston there. And so that my kiddo would catch the bus to Houston and then catch another bus to American Charter to go to the more of the charter school instead of the district she actually lives in. We took full advantage of it, looking for the best schools that we could find within our area that provided a quality education, and not so much the indoctrination that we've been seeing, or just outright the worst scores scholastically in the school system for teaching, which was one of the biggest outcomes of why my child never went to the area that we lived. And I agree with you about the school choice there and making that happen. So where do we come up with the extra money, though? I mean, that's the big $1 million question that I had here is we're going to be losing a lot of state funding and federal funding every time we remove another piece of that curriculum, or that agenda that they push upon us, where diversity, inclusion, and equity, and you got to use proper pronouns and all this other stuff. If you don't, you're going to lose your funding. Here's extra bathrooms, or using the same bathrooms when you identify as a different gender, and the doors are not even on the bathroom stalls. And they want this allowed to happen within our schools. So we're, again, as we remove the agenda that's been in place since 2015, been going on a lot longer than that, but that's when the main issues really started to affect everyone. What do we do not without that extra funding that would be coming in? Where do we get it from?
Absolutely. So I believe we need to work more with our state legislators and make sure we don't lose funding from the state level by incorporating this. That is with the changing that clause when it comes to education funding. Where does it go? So being able to alter that so that it allows more of a school choice program at the state level to make sure we don't lose that funding. Also, looking at the federal funding, I had mentioned the cost of compliance. Every dollar we get from the federal government has strings attached to it, and at some point you need to realize you are losing more to accept what little money you do get from the federal government. So I think we need to not be afraid to lose that funding. Additionally, if you look at our property taxes, you had mentioned 2/3 of it go to education. There is a 20% section of the pie outside of that 2/3 that are for school bonds. And I'm actually against school bonds. I find it immoral that we can't budget to make more schools. And so instead we're going to take from future generations, take money from them. So we're, I have a child. I have a 3-year-old child. She's going to have to pay for these school bonds because we can't budget up here. So I don't want any more school bonds. That way, with the mill rate that we have now, that 20%, as we get rid of it, then that can go more towards education now. And another thing too, with the MatSu Valley expanding with its population, we're going to see more coming in because of the mill rate, and also housing prices are going to be skyrocketing. So looking at the previous report when it comes to the financial stuff, we see a $10 million increase from previous fiscal years each year because we're growing at such a rapid rate, from property taxes, the mill rate, to skyrocketing housing costs, etc.
So basically the cut and dry of all of that is expect your property taxes to go up a little bit to help bring education back more in line to cover the missing revenue that may have been there.
Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily. I don't want the property taxes to go up, but I want to make sure when we're allocating it, so we do have to pay off the bond. So there is that bond section, but we're going to make sure that bond section doesn't increase at all. So we can pay that off, and that's another chunk that can go straight into education right now. So there's going to be multiple things at varying levels of governance. That's more the stuff that I could influence in my position, but there needs to be help at all levels of governance and active constituents voicing that they need these changes.
So do you, last education question that I have, and that's because you as an assembly member don't have much say over how they vote there in the school board, but you do have a lot of influence on how much money they're going to get to provide the education that they may or may not want to achieve. Boy, I hate when you lose your train of thought right in the middle of that.
It happens.
But all right, I'm skipping off of that question here for just a second. I know it will come back to me.
We can circle back to it.
Thank you. Yes, we will circle back to it much later, and I'll definitely get you an answer at a never time, especially maybe next week or next year or next lifetime. It depends on when we circle that far back. It was a question that someone had asked me there in the chat room, and it was kind of floating through my mind, and that's kind of why I lost track of where I was going. It still was bugging me. Ranked choice voting. Where do you personal feelings stand on it? I know that if you're running for, say, a House or a Senate seat, ranked choice would mean a lot to you right now. But you're running in a nonpartisan race right now where your party does not dictate how you're going to be there when you're as an assembly member, because as an assembly member you are to represent all parties, not your personal affiliation on a voting level, say, versus a constituents level. But ranked choice in general, since you do got to rank in this upcoming election for the state, where do you stand with ranked choice voting, and what do you think of it? Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? Where do you?
Absolutely. So my race in particular isn't going to have the ranked choice portion of it. It's going to be just the statewide elections. I'm actually in favor of ranked choice voting. It solves different issues like ballot access laws. Those from different parties had issues getting onto the ballot. They had to do more work just to get onto the ballot, whereas Republicans and Democrats automatically made it on. So it solves that issue. Additionally, if you look at a lot of the different races, you see, 2, 3, 4 different folks on the ballot for that position, and they're all the same party. All of them are Republicans. Now you get to rank which Republican you like better than the other. So we get better quality candidates. Also, if you've noticed, especially with the Sarah Palin and Begich campaigns, you see that mudslinging hurts your campaign. And I really like that. There's more accountability when you're doing mudslinging or a negative campaign. People don't like to hear that. So
yeah, I mean, you really gotta, I mean, in my case, it's very simple how I do things, because I'm not party affiliated on any level whatsoever. I am one of the undecided that won't even put a undeclared down on their ticket. it's the bottom line for me is who can do the best job.
Right.
And that's all that's ever mattered to me since day one. Your party affiliation doesn't mean anything to you. And then the second thing that always helps me decide my decision of who to vote for is how much it's going to come out of my wallet to pay for me voting you into office.
Right.
Those are always my two. And so ranking, I mean, you are a libertarian.
Yes.
So you do fall into that party that just never gets any of the big bucks financial supports of the ranking Democrat or Republican majority out there that always seem to flood their own pockets but never anybody else's, especially when it comes time to actually be elected and they get into office. They always flood it into their own pockets of the donors that got them elected versus making it out to everybody that they're supposed to actually be representing. So
Exactly.
I appreciate your views there on ranked choice. It really does open up the eyes to people that, well, we got to emphasize that the borough race is not ranked choice voting.
Yes.
It is pick one and done. So on the borough level, when you're voting for assembly, school board, it is pick your favorite, the number one candidate. And yes.
Just circle next to Meghan Trupp and you'll be fine. You'll get through it. You'll be good.
yes. You are one and done, and that's all that was needed there. Megan for president. Yeah, I'm all for it. Help make Alaska great again. We got a lot of different things that are going on besides ranked choice voting. More on a borough level is we've got a road system that is falling apart. I mean, I'm sure you coming out to my domain out here in Big Lake and driving Big Lake Road, you don't drive down the center of the road like you normally would because you'll have no suspension left by the time you get to just the turnoff where you got to go to just to get to me.
Right.
The turnoff that just after the turnoff, if you actually went a little bit further towards the roundabout, you would have bumped into two potholes that are wide open right now that literally will swallow your entire tire down to the frame and then pop back up again if you're going at a slower speed, causing a lot of damage to our vehicles out here. This is not just my region that is having this problem. I hear all the time from the assembly, because I complain to them a lot about our roads, is what can they do about it? And they always tell me I need to go to my city council who represents my area, because all your guys' job is to give the money to that section of the borough's government,
Right.
and then they spend that money to maintain the roads where we're at. Where do you feel the transportation network needs to be at here in the valley? KGB is a good example of transportation to add into it. You can even throw the railroad expansion in there to kind of complete the whole picture.
Exactly. So a couple of things I know with our property taxes, I believe it's around 20% of our property taxes go to these projects. Looking at them, bringing up cost of compliance again, there are compliance things that we have to fall in line with from the federal level. We have to have so many miles of bike path and sidewalk. We're spending millions of dollars on these sidewalks that can only be used 5 months out of the year, and they aren't maintained. I mean, I have a sidewalk really close to where I live, and it becomes an absolute ice field throughout the entire winter. So we're spending millions of dollars on a small section that is not usable 12 months out of the year, as opposed to our roads, which we do have to use 12 months out of the year. So I believe we need to take a look at going against that cost of compliance, maybe taking that hit of not bringing in those federal dollars if that's the case, but then we can have a better road system that is more catered to what we need as Alaskans, not what DC is telling us that we need to do with our own roads. Remember, DC is 4,000 miles away. So being able to cater to the needs that we need, taking a look at it too, I wish I would like to take a look at more of the zoning laws. Again, that's going to be more on the city level though. Taking a look at where businesses are allowed to be, because right now businesses are on the same roads that we're commuting through. So if the commuters come through, Palmer Wasilla, come through the parks, also the Glen Highway. And then that's also where all the grocery stores are, and that's also where all the restaurants are. We need to kind of take a look at what our zoning laws are prohibiting us from doing, from spreading out. Again, you take a look at our grocery stores, and they're concentrated in such small sections, but that's also the same place that commuters are trying to get through. So taking a look at the planning, making sure that we can spread out our zoning, maybe loosen them up a little bit so that we can spread out our resources. There's also the project Point Mackenzie, the bridge to Anchorage, taking a look at that as an option. Again, that could be a little risky whenever you have bridges involved, especially over bodies of water. That can affect the body of water, but it doesn't seem like it would affect it too much downstream. My background is engineering, by the way, so taking a look at that, our railway system, that is going to be an expensive venture. Again, I wish I had gone to the transportation forum, but
well, they have cut and bought most of the right-of-ways going
Right.
to Point Mackenzie already. I capitalized upon all the trees that were falling down, supplied me with firewood for about 3 years when that first initial startup of that out there happened.
right.
We just can't seem to get the money to keep it going. Point Mackenzie is a good example. I mean, it's a deep water port. We don't have to dredge it. Anchorage has to dredge theirs. They spend hundreds of thousands every year to keep that dredged out deep enough to be able to bring the cargo ships in there to unload. And Point Mackenzie is just one of those great options to... That money that is being wasted dredging one harbor could be spent to expand the entire Point Mackenzie project. But one of the big holdups is KGB Road. Do you see any hopes of it ever getting completed out to actually Point Mackenzie? Do you have any goals yourself to help perpetuate that in the right direction? Where do you stand on that expansion itself?
Right. I would like to take a closer look at the BOM, or the bill of materials. Like I mentioned, there's the so many sidewalks that we have to build. If you look at previous meetings, they were signing off on millions of dollars for more bike paths. So that's equipment, money, time being spent on things that aren't as pertinent or as useful to us right now. So we definitely need to spend our resources and our time on what we need to in order to get to that far. Again, road construction, we're at the speed of government, and I really hope that we can speed things along. I know a lot of people talk about like they shouldn't rush these things, and again, we're at the speed of government, and anyone who's had to deal with government, it makes you want to pull your hair out. I don't know if you've ever been to a DMV, but you know.
Well, I'll put it simply, I don't have much to pull out to begin with. So yeah, it's... And that is because I got into politics. I mean, I used to have a full head of hair. I used to really...
Oh no, I should get out of politics then. I got thick native hair, so we're good for at least a couple more years.
Well, it was all of those first few years where it was dangerous to be on the right side of politics versus anywhere else, and that was where my biggest hair pulling came from until I figured out the ways to that those trolls no longer got to me anymore, and actually they became fun to mess with. It's amazing what you learn the deeper you get into politics, to where you can, their fallacies of their arguments and how easy they are to poke holes into out there. It's a lot of fun for me now. And but again, you do lose a lot of hair. So we've got the road system, we've got the port, we've got the railroad that's out there. These are all major projects that we need to be concerned about. We've got the funding for the education that we've discussed that is definitely needs to be looked at, especially since out here in the MatSu Valley, we're a growing district.
Yes.
And we've increased our population between, 10,000 people over just the past 5 years. And that population is continuing to grow, especially after all of those people that have exodused out of Anchorage and moved out here to the valley. Where do you think we should be leveraging our voices when it comes to those down in Juneau? Because you were talking about the mill rates are going to are being adjusted just slightly. That a lot of that's going to right now is based upon inflation that's causing that to happen. It has nothing to do with anything else. but the cost of being able to cover all of this stuff, especially education, if we have 10,000 students that leave Anchorage and they move out here, we need to be able to expand our education system just to be able to cover all that money. This is the question I forgot to ask you earlier. I'm circling back to
Okay.
those that are watching actually know. So where do we come up? I mean, what do we do to lobby those down in Juneau to leverage the buying power to be able to provide a better education out here for the expanding population?
Again, that has to do with staying in constant communication with those that are in office right now. I actually attend all the coffee meet and greets and town hall meetings when it comes to Shelley Hughes, Dillian Johnson, Kathy Tilton, and I make sure to voice my concerns there. And so that is more as like an active voice constituent, and that's what I plan to continue to do when I'm elected as assembly member, because I am a constituent to them, you know, to Dillian Johnson and Shelley Hughes, you know, if they were to be reelected. So again, keeping that constant communication. I'm going to be calling them, sending them emails. I mean, that's the best really that we can do, is just to be that squeaky wheel, like you have mentioned, in order to get that funding. And I have faith in some of the stuff that they've talked about in terms of school costs and helping out with different aspects of it. I know Shelley Hughes is, well, I don't know if it's public knowledge, but she is like looking into ways that we can help with our safety measures at these schools. So that has been kind of an issue too. If you look at how the Wasilla PD and the Palmer PD, they've had to pull their security officers from the high schools, or is it the troopers? Anyways, yeah, they had to pull their security officers because not as many people are helping out with the police department, so they're kind of low on numbers, and they've had to pull that. So taking a look at how we can better implement safety standards there, but also it would save money. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. It's just not one of those easy to answer on the assembly level.
Not.
Because that's more of the state control and people that you, like you said, being that squeaky wheel, being that activist that gets out there and it really brings to the attention of people the focus on where the problems are. And as everybody knows me, I'm definitely that squeaky wheel that loves to show up, put in their 2 cents about what they think about what's going on there, and then stream it to everybody else unfiltered and uncut so that they can put in their own opinion of what they think. And that's what this is all about, is to hear it unfiltered. And I do appreciate your time here today to be able to let people get to hear from you. And to kind of bringing that around there is we've got another issue that was brought up in the Palmer area within the past month, and they called it the vagrant issue. And really, in reality, it's the same homeless population that we see going on in Anchorage. And they have it's only about 45 people from what they had discussed that day, 50 people altogether. But there was about 2,000 call-outs last year for these 45 people. And they're floating. These are people that go from Anchorage out here to the valley and back to Anchorage again. But out of those 2,000 calls they had, 9 individuals were responsible for over 1,000 of them. Where do you think the entire valley stands at when it comes to the homeless population, the vagrant issue, as they called it? Do you think we're doing enough, or why do we not see the 22,000 people that Anchorage is seeing and ours is more around 50? What do you think the difference may be, and why is that? And what do you think maybe as an assembly level or borough level should they be addressing this issue? Or what solutions might you have? I mean, this is one of those kind of in your wheelhouse
Right.
because it is an issue within your borough, but you don't have, just like the assembly in Anchorage, it's just something that you guys are on top of, not waiting for the city council to be bringing this up at a personal level and not addressing the assembly with it first.
Exactly. And not only is it like in my neck of the woods in Palmer, but also like it's in my backyard. We've had homeless people in our backyard before. So hits me, close to home, literally. So taking a look at it, so there's not much the Assembly can do due to its Tier 2 status. But at the same time, as a libertarian, if you look at government intervention for things such as vagrancy and the amount of dollars that they pour into it, there is so many levels of corruption that it can easily happen at that level. And really it has to do with more of a voluntaristic sort of approach when it comes to this. Again, there's 9 people that are responsible for this sort of issue, and it seems like there's a revolving door when it comes to this. If they are threatening violence and doing heinous crimes and theft, it's really difficult for our current system to actually go after these people. They can claim insanity or not in the right mental state, and I feel like that is happening more often. Additionally, our police are overburdened with the amount of work that they have to do as it is. So there's multiple things that you need to do in order to attack this problem. There's first decriminalizing victimless crime, so that way there's less burden on police. We need to take a look at what is worth police actually tackling. That also eases up our criminal justice system. So make sure we're tackling the heinous crimes, but if there's definitely a lot of things that come through the justice system that are victimless crimes that we really could just get rid of, and it's not making our society a better place because we're forcing police to go out to these things. Additionally, I really take on more of a volunteeristic approach on my own end. I do a lot of volunteer work and fundraising for various organizations such as Kids Cupboard, and make sure that there is help for kids that are food insecure or they are in poverty. So I feel like dollars go further when it comes through an organization like that. Another thing, speaking of Kids Cupboard and other organizations like Kids Cupboard, they also have their own cost of compliance. So they have to have a full-time position of a compliance manager. So you have a full-time salary for someone that's making sure that they're under compliance. And really that's how many tens of thousands of dollars more that could have been going towards food for kids that are food insecure, they need help. So taking a look at our charities and easing it up so that they can help the public more, because those dollars are going to go further. They're going to have much better solutions than what we have at the the government level and bureaucrats. And so there's multiple things. Attacking it from different angles like that is going to have far more of effect than anything that we could do at the Assembly. Again, we are a Tier 2 assembly, government, so it's not like we can have a homeless shelter put in place from the Assembly. So that makes sense.
It does. It does. I know there's one thing that's always been bugging me ever since this issue has been bouncing around now for about a year, and this was the really first major event that they had to discuss it. They've got a couple more lined up in the future that they're planning on doing.
Right.
Is there any thought of maybe bringing in one person that is assigned at the assembly level that would perchance be able to oversee where the help is located at? And I say that as in they are the people in charge of the compiled list of all of the churches and the help out centers like My Hands out there, the Kids Cupboard that you just described, Fireside Books. There's a lot of different places out there that you can go and get help. In my own community, just here in Big Lake, we have 2 churches that you can go to, and if you're homeless, and they will help find you housing, they will help put food in your cupboards, they will help give you clothing if that is what you need, they will give you a clean place to take a shower in, and help you go find a job. And most of that is all done internally. In fact, you're being hired by someone that is a person that goes to that church.
Right.
And I don't see that happening so much in Anchorage on a level that we have it going on out here. But what I do see is we don't have someone that has that central location that someone can pick up that phone and say, I need help, this is where I'm at, what's available in my area, and say, oh, here's the name, here's the phone number you can contact, here's where you can get the reach out to be able to get that kind of help. Do you see anything like that, or do you know of anything that could be helping in that direction? or in the works. I'll shut up now.
That's okay. Yeah, I believe Edna DeVries, the borough mayor, was at this meeting, and she also mentioned about having like a stack of papers and having the list of resources and contact information of what you have just described. It may be a matter of putting it onto the borough website and making it easily accessible, and making sure that other local businesses know about this as well, making sure also churches know about this as well. And maybe churches will step forward like, oh, we also have this. We're not on the list. We do this, this, and this to help with the homeless. So it would be nice if someone could compile all this info, make it as accessible as possible through social media, through websites, even emailing it out. I mean, we're in the day and age of plenty of technology. We can easily spread the word about these things. And then after it's spread, see if there's more people that step up like, hey, you could put me on the list for this. I believe that would have much more of an impact. Again, it has to be through a volunteeristic means in order for the solution to be, at least to have a solution in place that will be far more effective and reduce the amount of homelessness, vagrancy, and various crimes that go with it. So I actually grew up in the Valley, so it's really interesting to see how it, not interesting, that's a bad word. It's really sad to see how it is come to this point. I don't remember the vagrancy being that big of an issue growing up. Again, I was born in '93. We came out here when I was about 5 years old, so about '98. So I've been in the Valley since '98. So it's crazy seeing this boom in vagrancy. I think another thing too is the past couple of years has really added to that. So that isolation, people losing their jobs, just wrecking the economy and the inflation. I mean, people are struggling to fill a gas tank and buy adequate groceries. I don't know if you've gotten groceries and gas lately, but it really hurts. I mean, I'm flinching when I'm, at the pump and, oh man, I need this, but this is gonna hurt.
Simply enough for me, after 20 years of running my company, I have never once raised my labor rates. I never charged more for my travel fees. Since the Biden inflation has started, I have now raised how much I charge on an hourly basis for my rates, and we're not talking a small raise. We're talking $30 more an hour for what I'm doing now than what I was charging pre-Biden. And the same thing for my travel costs. I was the lowest in the state. Now I'm more in line to what the other companies I compete against were charging before the pandemic started. And they're higher than what I am still for that. And we're feeling the impact. If I don't, I can't put that food on my table. I can't cover my electric bill, can't cover the gas bill. And I appreciate the Assembly this year giving us that 1 mill rate tax reduction on our property taxes.
Right.
But it felt kind of like a moot point when they had already raised the mill rate just to give us a deduction of the same mill rate that they had raised. It
Good
felt,
old government solution.
yeah, it didn't feel like I was seeing a deduction at all. They're just postponing what they've already done down for 1 more year. Is kind of the way that felt. And as an Assembly member, I'm hoping that, I call those political shenanigans, the games they play to make it look like we're good guys, when in really they got you in the end, whether you like it or not.
Right.
They just made it seem like they did you a favor doing it. So you feel good about taking it in the end.
Right.
So we've got the vagrancy issue, which is clearly, in my mind, I agree with you. I don't see it as much of an issue as it was being portrayed to be. I see it as more of a repeat offenders out there that are the bulk of the entire problem that most people are complaining about. Those 9 individuals, like I said, 1,000 of the 2,000 call-outs for it last year was them. And the other 40 that are still sitting there unaccounted for, a lot of those are transplants coming out of Anchorage, from what I'm understanding, from Centennial Park when they were doing the final closures there. That's when they all of a sudden popped back out here, and they're providing busing for them to do this. Are you aware that Anchorage is actually busing the homeless out to the Valley? If they want to request to come out here, and then vice versa, if you're homeless in the Valley, they will bus you back to Anchorage.
I have definitely heard a lot about it. I haven't like witnessed it myself, but I've definitely heard about it, and that's obviously not a solution. Just passing it on to someone else to deal with. Another thing that comes to mind too. So when it comes to a lot of this can be a mental health issue. We don't have the resources or the capacity to deal with this much mental health issues, and that also skyrocketed with the pandemic and closures, and people being stuck at home with themselves, or so some things that I wish could happen at the state level is removing certificate of need laws, first off, to reduce the cost in order to expand capacity for mental health and other health things as well. I believe there's 16 different items on, 16 or 17 different items on certificate of need laws in order to expand health that cost a lot. Another thing I wish is that we would acknowledge and recognize certificates of medicine from other states. So currently, if you want to practice medicine in the state of Alaska, you have to get certified, in the state. Even if you are certified, like let's say you're in Oregon, you still need to go through the process and be certified here in Alaska. That would also open up to more telemedicine. So just expanding our capacity and reducing the costs of medical care could really make an impact, and not just with the homeless population, but those that are threatened to be at that homeless position. I know when the pandemic hit, neither my husband or myself, we had a really hard time finding a job. It was a very scary time for us. I also had my little baby at the time, and so we were like threatening to be at that point of poverty. Luckily, luck pulled through. My husband was able to find a job and we were able to get back on our feet. But it was a very scary time, and I could see how many more people fell into that, in that poverty sort of situation. So again, there's taking a look at what the real cause of these issues are, and in terms of like what is holding back the public from solving this issue. A lot of times is government holding the public back from being able to help out its neighbor.
Well, we see that very evidently here in Anchorage this past week. The assembly there did an on-site review of the new navigation center. Amazing that, Lee, I've noticed that they had no problem doing video, live video for that. They can't do it in their own assembly chambers and provide you with live video, only audio, and usually it's a pre-recorded, re-released long after the meeting was long over. And but here they are doing a live on-site review, coming back saying, well, we're just not going to pay for it. And those people that got millions are not going to get it. And here's a solution that's going to be a long-term solution toward actually providing an end result that is in the positive. And the assembly is doing everything in their power to prevent it. $300 million they have spent since the beginning of the pandemic to current on the homeless problem. That is roughly around $130,000 per homeless person, a population of about 2,000 people. That $300 million, if you divided it all up, could have bought each and every single one of them a beautiful brand new house. And not a single one of them would be living on the streets. I'm scared that MatSu's going to turn into that. That we're going to be funding the never-ending boondoggle of handing the money over to whatever special interest organization that says, we have the cure, and all they keep doing is saying, give us more money, give us more money, give us more money, yet the same people that were out on the streets are still the same people that were out on the streets. And for them, they've got a population of 450 that are permanently homeless, and then the rest of that 2,000 population is the revolving door on homelessness that goes in and out depending on where they may be at financially or in their drug rehab in most cases. But the other 450 is, like you're describing, mental health issues on top of probably substance abuse between alcohol and drug addiction. And I'm just really worried what the next future for the valley is going to be when it comes to that vagrant issue that they were bringing up there in Palmer, and the wrong type of solutions are going to come out of it.
For sure, and it really is a threat out here in the MatSu, and I think the best stance that any governing body could take is getting out of the way so that you can help yourself, and that will be the most cost effective, the most effective in all means, implementing. And instead of just throwing more and more money at the problem, I mean, this sort of issue, this is one of those issues, it will eat every cent that you throw at it. So it really needs to take on more of a volunteeristic and realize the root of what caused this population to be in the state that it is, and recognizing, making sure that we don't add to that population first off, so we don't have more people being fed into this system, and seeing how we can make it so people can help themselves.
Well, that's kind of where I'm getting worried about now is, and you kind of brought it up there with that last little bit, that pre-pandemic we had about 18% of Alaska's population was living in poverty of one form or another, collecting welfare in our state. Mm-hmm. And since the pandemic has happened, we are now at 35% of Alaska's population is at poverty level, living off of welfare in one form or another. This is very evident in Palmer, and if I don't know if you caught the news article or not this morning of the daycare that has been in business there forever, and they're closing their doors, and it's not from a lack of business. They're overwhelmed. They don't have they need to expand, not be closing down, but they're closing down because nobody wants to work.
Correct. Yeah. When you have systems of UBI or universal basic income, or variations where it can be considered universal basic income, you do see less work coming in. So when the wages of a private organization, such as, I believe it was Rising Excellence, I believe it's called, or Rising Stars, was the daycare you're talking about, their wages are competing with the wages of what the state is willing to give you in terms of its social programs. And when you have that issue, I mean, how can you compete with that? A lot of people did talk about the wages, like this is more of when I was going through Facebook, looking at the comments, people who had worked there or looked at their job listings, they were offering around like $11, $12 an hour, whereas you look at what the state is willing to give you if you're unemployed or you need those resources, it's going to be a lot higher. So we need to make sure we aren't competing wages with people that can provide, some sort of career or a way that they can work and have pride. Also with those universal basic incomes, it makes everything else cost more, and then we have to tax more, and then it's a never-ending cycle, and people aren't working, and so it's difficult when you have to compete against the wage that the government's willing to give you to not do anything.
So any ideas on, and we're seeing the big boom out here in the valley, the businesses, lots are being cleared, new businesses are being built. The corridor that you were describing earlier that has all the traffic jams is going to be having brand new restaurants opening up here real shortly. Yep. And more has been built from Wasilla to Big Lake. What used to be trees are now either vacant lots that have been cleared, being ready to be developed, or you go down the row and in the last 3 years there's 30 brand new businesses between Wasilla and Houston now that never existed before, just watching it explode throughout the area. What do you see as an assembly member to help influence or convince the rest of Alaska that the destination to be is here in the valley? What can you do to help bring more business into the valley, and so that we continue to keep growing?
For sure. I don't know if you've seen a bunch of articles talking about Alaska being the worst state to start a business in. There's many factors that go in with that. However, I would like to look at the red tape and other government burdensome overreach that are making it more expensive to start a business. Taking a look at different permits. I don't know. Something that I like to say is, like, nothing makes you a libertarian faster than starting your own business. And so looking at all the red tape and the permits involved, not only that, there's permits within the permits you have to buy. That's something that we saw with the gun range issue, that there was a permit you needed to get an ordinance, and then within that there were other permits as well that cost money. So it's death by 1,000 taxes and fees. And I think we need to be more of a shining example for the rest of the state, how we don't need that non-value added taxes, fees, permits, sort of legislation that is costing our businesses so much, so that way they can thrive. We have the Arctic Winter Games to look forward to. We need to be able to first recover from COVID, and everything that came with that. Sorry if you get shadow banned because I said COVID. Sorry about that. So we need to be able to recover from the last couple of years, and then we also need to thrive so that we can withstand the capacity that the Arctic Winter Games is going to bring in 2024. So making it easier for small businesses by getting out of the way, not providing more
more red tape for more paper cuts, death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. So going into that.
I feel for it all the time. I mean, being here in Big Lake, it really does drive me nuts that the Wasilla sends me out. You need to buy a business license from them to operate my business in Big Lake when I already am forced to buy a state business license
Correct.
to be able to run my business within the state. But if I lived in Anchorage, I don't have an Anchorage business license that I have to buy to operate my state business in Anchorage.
Right.
It's completely backwards, the hurdles that you have to go through, or to build a piece of property just to develop up. I wanted to do one that had rentals on it, and they changed the rules.
And that's another way to lose hair about it too. It makes you want to pull your hair out. So exactly. And it's not any value added. I mean, taking a look at the pie graph of the tax revenue and what revenue comes to the borough, it's a very small pie piece in terms of paying for all these permits. And it's really just another way for government to get its fair share out of each transaction and be a part of it. And really, it has no place there. It's just trying to make itself more, what's the term I'm looking for? I'll circle back to it.
Cumbersome to be able to do anything.
They're trying to make themselves relevant and keep themselves in business. Government, I often see itself as like this business that you're forced to go through. And so that's why they can't fail in that regard. So making sure that, do we really need to be involved with this, that, and the other? Of course, there's some safety measures that are important, but there is plenty of non-value added taxes, fees, and permits that there's enough cushion room. We could get rid of that to give everyone a break.
Agreed. And so we've kind of covered the big gambit of most of the stuff that's happening within the valley and what we really got to be concerned with. And for the Winter Games, I was there at that borough meeting the day they voted and approved the games to come to the MatSu Valley, which really made me happy because we were right at the end of COVID lockdowns that we had when they were making this decision to bring the games in.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's just going to bring a lot of big business into the valley that wouldn't normally have been here. And I mean by big business as in when we normally wouldn't see the masses of people coming out to the valley because it's the middle of winter. Here they are now coming this direction to come watch and participate within the games, traveling from all over the state to be there for it.
For sure.
And a good boondoggle happening there. And red tape, I do agree, we do need to cut a lot of that. You made a lot of good points there on the different directions that need to be taken. The big question is how do we make that happen? How do we get the assembly? I mean, you're one of 9 voices there on the assembly that gets to decide what direction they're going to go to next. And where do you think the other assembly members will just take the current body that's sitting there? Where do you think they would lie on trying to cut the red tape and eliminating it so it doesn't exist anymore?
I think enough people can be reasonable that we can take a look at it, take a fine-tooth comb, look through the BOMs, look through the ordinances. I think they would be more open to it, especially if you talk about, the amount of money that we're going to be saving. There are enough people that are business owners and caring about the valley, and meeting them where they are. A lot of people are really excited about the Winter Games, and it's like for this to be a success here in the valley and to be able to ease the burdens and get help a lot of people out, because too many people are in poverty. We got to be able to get out of the way so that they can do it themselves. I really do think that I can be a voice of reason to show them like this is what we need to do, and I think that's the best way to approach it. I mean, I can't force anyone to do this, but I will for sure give it my best shot.
All right. I've covered the entire gambit. Is there anything here that you would like to maybe address that I didn't bring up in conversation, or?
That's pretty much most of what I'm looking at when it comes to policies is uh, where can we save money and help out people so that they can help themselves. A lot of times people look to government to tattletale to try and fix a problem, but the only way that government can address a problem is to make that problem legal to have or make it more expensive to have. So, taking a look at it, so I bring a fresh perspective of like how can we get out of the way so people can solve it. Looking at the culture that we have here in Alaska, we have enough people that are can do, fix it yourself, just want to be left alone. They don't need that government interference. We have plenty of amazing volunteers that are trying to solve issues but are being held back by government regulations. So pushing more into that because we have a culture that can support that sort of libertarian government mindset. I really think I can be that voice that can be there, that squeaky wheel that's like, hey, let's take a more libertarian approach because these people are going to do a lot more better at solving this issue than any of us up here on the panel type of thing.
Okay, I'd like to thank one of our watchers right now that are listening to the broadcast for this next question, because I can't believe, I mean, just like forehead slap on that one. How did I miss asking it? Election integrity. We've had some major issues come up at the borough, multiple borough meetings addressing hand counting our elections here in the MatSu Valley and getting rid of the Dominion machines completely, no longer using them here. Where do you personally stand on that? Do you think that hand counting is the right direction to go? Do you think people might be a little nuts because they think Dominion is not trustworthy? I'm not looking for conspiracy theories here. I'm more looking in for an answer for what has actually happened with the vote in 2023, no longer using Dominion, hand counting everything for both the borough and state level elections.
Yeah, so this issue, I was kind of looking at it from an engineering perspective because I have used a lot of equipment to gather information from streams and other such machinery, and so I've been around sample machines, tons of machinery, I should say. So taking a look, a lot of these machines can be expensive. So when it comes to the Dominion machines, a lot of people don't know this, but we're leasing those machines. A lot of people that were tackling this issue that said that they want the machines, they're like, we've already bought them. No, we didn't buy them. We're leasing them. So there's that issue. So you have to keep paying each time for this. Additionally, if, let's say I'm working out in the field and I have this machinery and it's far too expensive for the job that I need to do, or my boss tells me like, hey, you don't need that machinery, you can just count it yourself, you can. I got to listen to my boss and be like, all right, you don't buy equipment that's far too expensive for the stuff that you need to do. Additionally, if there are bad reviews on the equipment and my boss is like, hey, I don't trust this company, I don't trust this equipment, sure thing, boss, all right, we're not going to use that machine. People on the borough had talked about getting something for getting a counting machine, kind of like what you see with a Scantron, but through a different company. That is something I would be open to taking a look at. But again, we're saving money by doing a hand count, first off. That was confirmed by the borough clerk, Lonnie. And so there's that thing. And also you have this this portion of transparency when you have volunteers from each candidate that are going to be able to watch the hand count. So they're going to have about 5 to 6 tables. They don't know for sure yet, counting these out. And you get volunteers from each candidate at the table watching what's going on. I mean, they're not allowed to interfere, but they can observe what's going on. So you have all these pairs of eyes watching and
actually probably get the results that night.
Right.
Not 2+ weeks later. Here's our new numbers for you. The candidate that won on the night of the elections actually lost the election by 1 vote.
And then you don't even need to be a conspiracy theorist to know that machinery can glitch. It can have errors. There's also user error because you still have a user at the machine counting, inputting the stuff. They talked about user error in their you have to reset the machine, and some people don't catch that, and then they're putting in ballots that are showing up as error because you still need to address the machine telling you like, hey, something's wrong with me. The machines can't think themselves, but someone is operating the machine. Stuff can happen. I've seen it
Well,
with our
we
machine.
know that hand counting works because I think it's 135 precincts in Alaska still do it all by hand count. They don't even never have had machines ever.
Right, and it's an expensive piece of machinery. And it doesn't make sense that you would buy something so expensive. Again, that comes to accountability of where our money is going. If this was a private business, we wouldn't be buying that expensive machinery to do something that we could easily do by hand.
Okay, unrelated to anything to do with the borough. This is more on a constituent state level type question. We are a nation of laws, and Palmer is a good example of a nation of laws that failed us. There was a few years ago an illegal alien who had overstayed their visa by quite a long time, was here definitely illegally, and they were awarded $50,000 for an incident that had happened at a bar, where I believe they were the bouncer at the bar at the time, if I remember the story correctly. But here we are, we awarded this person $50,000 of taxpayers' money for being in our country illegally, for being detained and rightfully detained and arrested for being in the country illegally, and was set free and given money for their inconvenience, as they had put it. I'm bringing that particular case up, and you're the first one in all the candidates that I have actually mentioned this with. But I'm tying it into, we've got Berkowitz during his term. He, in Anchorage as mayor, declared that Anchorage was an official, unofficial sanctuary city. Then more on a state level, we have legalized marijuana, even though our federal laws say that this cannot be happening. Then on a national level, we have legalized marijuana in many of the different states out there, and many of them are declared sanctuary states and or cities within them that are outright declared, unlike the unofficial declaration we have going on here in Alaska. We're constantly and consistently ignoring to the federal laws that we have, flipping the figurative middle finger at them, and saying we're not going to do what you tell us to do, we're going to do our own thing. Why are we not doing that on a state level when it comes to developing up our resources?
Oh man, that is a big question.
Yeah, like I said, this is not a borough question. This is
Right.
more on a personal state level.
Exactly.
Pride for our state and ability to. A lot of my questions here today have focused on how do we pay for everything.
Right, and that all comes back to the cost of compliance. So talking about like sanctuary cities and other things that go against what the federal government wants. Well, there's plenty of actors in federal government and in DC that would be in favor of like having these sanctuary cities and kind of doing this virtue signaling. No one wants to say, you know, these people can't be here because then you lose votes and people get upset. And so they're going to, of course, pander to that. Even though people that have been affected by this, they're like, well, we need to take more of a stance. You know, people should be following the law. So it's a matter of taking the risk of, you know, losing resources from the federal government due to cost of compliance. I really think we need to take more of a stance. You look at the Supreme Court case of Sturgeon versus Frost, where we were taking a stance in terms of having more of like state sovereignty over our lands. Of course, that's just submerged lands, so the rivers, and having
The water rights and stuff, yeah.
So I think we need to keep pushing in that regard and having more sovereignty. 60% of our state is owned by the federal government, and that is not a small number by any means. I mean, that's far more than any other state, not percentage-wise, but acreage-wise or square miles-wise. Being able to have governing bodies be more firm and taking on more of state sovereignty is what we really need to see. So I'm really hoping that at the state level that they can take more of that, and then because there's
Well, I've crunched the numbers. I've looked at what goes out to the federal government from our state, and by far we are handing them more than what we take back in on their federal subsidiaries that they give us. I mean, what they contribute back to us to pay for the Obamacare and for the the add-ons for K through 12 education and stuff like that, all those money incentives the federal government gives us for our quote unquote survival. It's just a small fraction compared to what's going back out the door to them.
Exactly. And then there's also the cost that you can estimate, but areas that we could do some logging, but we aren't allowed to because it's federal land, however, is, optimal for logging, and then you see these massive forest fires that take out our whole state. So, because people look at
we are literally not that far away. We're talking maybe a generation, or could be less, it could be more, but I think about a generation away from having what is going on in California become more of a stock standard happening here in Alaska, where there's year after year after year after year watching our forests being burnt to the ground because of mismanagement.
Exactly, and especially when you have spruce beetle going through, that's really adding, fuel to the fire, drying out those trees. And really, if you had responsible, sustainable logging, which we do have much better practices now than even just a couple of years, 10 years ago, we aren't replacing it with monoculture trees, and they're thinning out the areas to where it naturally should be, because even way back in the day when it was just Alaska Natives up here, the forest fires would go through and clear out the area, and my mom would tell me about how they would let that happen as long as it wasn't hitting the villages, so that it could thin out the trees and make it more healthy of a ecosystem. It really upsets me when people want to be mindful about the environment and they say you can't cut down a single tree. It's like, well, you're creating a very hazardous situation. That it's either going to be burned out in a forest fire and thinned out, which will be healthy for it, or we could go in and do some responsible, sustainable logging. And not only that, it creates jobs and more resources for us. And with the supply chain issues, we need to think about how we can cut out the middleman and help ourselves. There is plenty of resources up here in Alaska. There's no reason we should be affected by, at least to this degree, when it comes to the supply chain issues that are going through.
Well, when we got places like California that are currently paying us for their carbon credits to plant trees so that they can pollute their environment more, that just blows me away that you can pay for your own pollution by paying for carbon credits. The Biden administration announcing their new climate change initiative to buy over 1 billion trees and plant them. And I'm going, well, if we were just smart and properly harvested our timber and replanted afterwards, just like they do with the gold mines. I mean, the gold mines out up north. I mean, I can't name a single Alaskan who doesn't watch like the Gold Rush show. And seeing the before and the after. Here's what it looks like before. Here's what it looked like during, because that's what we're watching all the time. And then they do that rare episode where they show the reclamation process in the very end, and they turn it back into a beautiful looking place that has all the trees replanted, new ponds created that were never there before, streams feeding into them, fish now living in them, those kind of things. And I don't see why we're just not doing that on a more open level and literally telling the federal government, stay out of Alaska. If you're not Alaskan, you don't have a voice in where our future goes in the direction of the development of our state.
Exactly, and especially with how big Alaska is, I would like to see, this is more of my libertarian side, I would like to see more local control and not just at state. I mean, Juneau is so far away, and they don't make the best choices either for everyone, along the Aleutian chain, anyone up here, up in the North Slope. We're a vast and culturally diverse state, and so I don't want the decisions all to be in Juneau too. So I want to bring it back from DC and then bring it back from Juneau and have more local control.
Agreed. Actually follow the laws, the ballots that we've passed numerous times to move the legislation onto the road system, including the Capitol.
Yes.
And demanding that they fund it. I mean, that's the only reason why it hasn't happened is they defunded it. That's how they got around our votes and our voices telling them to move it, is they just decided, oh, we're not going to cut that check. Sorry. Yeah, no. We control the purse strings. Screw you. That's another valid reason why to vote yes for the Constitutional Convention. We can force that on them. They would have no choice if we put it in the Constitution that our legislative body is to be had on the road system. They can keep the dang Capitol in Juneau all they want. They can keep that there. Just bring the control back into where the people can be involved.
Right.
Not telecommuting it over the telephone with 2 or 3 minutes and may not even get to even talk, even though you sit on the phone for 2 hours because the committee says we've ran out of time. To be continued, but no more testimony. If you want to leave it, write it to us. We'll ignore it because the lobbyists that are down here in Juneau knocking on our doors are already our top priority. You guys' opinions and voices really don't mean much compared to them.
Right.
And all right, now I've got one more borough-related question.
All right.
And that is because it's on the ballot. We did kind of touch upon it with the gun ranges and everything else out there earlier, but we never really got to the question that is on the local ballot that we get to vote on November 8th, and that's ballot measure 1 on the borough level. And this is in regards to any and all future gun regulations or ordinances that they may want to pass in the valley. This is in regards to also to the gun range that we were talking about earlier, the private gun ranges where this group of concerned citizens got together and made sure that we would never allow to have our own personal gun ranges anywhere ever again unless it goes through these billions and billions of red tape paper cuts to be approved. And then we got a brand new assembly, which is currently in charge, and they repealed that ordinance and got rid of it. And that's where this ballot measure comes into line. Where do you stand on the vote for that? The vote yes is to make it so that the people of the MatSu Valley Borough will vote on any future changes that may be imposed upon us all. A vote no leaves it as is, which is in the current, whoever the ruling assembly body is at the current time, makes that decision for us.
Right. So first, before I answer that, I am 100% pro Second Amendment. I don't think we should be putting restrictions on the use of firearms. As long as you aren't endangering other lives, hurting other people's, taking their stuff, then by all means, it should be legal. With that being said, I would like to bring the power back to the people, to the individual, and being able to vote on it. So I will say yes, it would provide a checks and balance, so it's not a handful of individuals that are ruling whether they get to infringe on your Second Amendment rights or not. So it does provide another layer of checks and balance, but at the same time, we shouldn't be adding restrictions. So, it violates the Second Amendment. So, yes, but also we shouldn't be doing that in the first place, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay, I've really pretty much came to the end of what I have for questions out here. If you were a more controversial person, I would have about another dozen questions that I would throw your direction, but dang it, you just make things too easy to do an interview. In fact, I could probably spend the next hour just BSing about the future direction of our state with you, which I've done many times in the past already. So it makes it difficult to have that kind of conversation here because we're focusing on the borough assembly. And our borough has always done a really good job here in the valley, and it's because of concerned constituents like me, like you, like the hundreds that I participate in on a weekly basis that gather together talking at different events and with different organizations. I mean, we're both all over the map. And literally, because you and me seem to show up at a lot of different places at the same time, and then there's a lot of stuff that I see popping up on your pages that, dang it, why didn't I know about that? And I would have liked to have been there for that one, yeah.
Right.
And so it takes a lot of everybody being actively involved, whether that is doing what you're doing right now, stepping up to take on the assembly and a role in the decision helping the valley grow, or in my case, being that voice that's there with the camera in your face, asking you the hard questions on why did you just do that, or why didn't you just do that, or thank God you just did that. I mean, to cover the whole gambit there of the different type of advocacies that people can take, just showing up on the road, waving a sign for your favorite candidate. Speaking of which, I believe I saw you have a sign waving event going on tomorrow.
I do. So tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the intersection of the Glen Highway and the Palmer-Wasilla Highway. We're going to be there at that intersection. I'll see if I can bring a whole bunch of hot chocolate. It's going to be cold, so bundle up, wear as much yellow as you can, and we're expected to have, a bit of a crowd, sign waving. These are the signs. Here, I'll go ahead and show people. Here's the signs that we'll be waving around. So absolutely. And, come on out, say hi to us. You don't have to be there the whole time. It might be cold. If you just stay out there for, even half an hour, I greatly appreciate it.
And all right, I'm going to do what Michael Dukes always does at the end of his show. This is your opportunity to give your 30-second elevator pitch, which I give I'm a lot more generous than he is. You can take as much time as you want. Let people know who you are, what district you are running for, and a lot of places it helps to expand upon that district by actually naming places that you would be representing within the borough. Right. So that way they know they are actually voting for you. And ways to get a hold of you, phone numbers, emails, website if you got it, where they can go and take a look at what you stand for and your campaign. I mean, I know I can run down the whole gambit of the list here of what you can put out there in this last chance, so to speak, to get your 2 cents in and let people know why we should be voting for Meghan Trupp and not anybody else in this very packed race. And for those that are not aware, there are 5 people running right now in District 2. And out of those 5 people, there is only 3 that I would consider voting for. And if this was a ranked choice voting going on right now, I believe the person sitting next to me would probably be hitting with one of the number 1 slots. And there would be a definite number 2 after that that's in this race. But 3, 4, and 5 wouldn't be finding their way onto my ticket whatsoever. So just to give you guys all a concept. So Megan, take it away.
Yeah, just real quick correction there. So District 1 and District 2 are up for election. I am in the District 2, and there are 3 of us in the District 2, and then 2 people in the District 1. So District 2, my name is Meghan Trupp. I'm running for Assembly for District 2. That is essentially along the river, and then up Trunk Road, and then up to Palmer Fishhook area. So the greater Palmer area is what District 2 is. Of course, unless you're counting for school board as well. That's a different race that's happening as well. But anyways, I am born and raised here in the MatSu Valley. I have strong libertarian principles, so I want to make sure that we have a strong voice on the board that says, how can government get out of the way so that you can help yourself? We have the Alaskan spirit, the Alaskan culture of being able to help yourself solve solutions, and our dollars will go farther through volunteerist means and not through some way that government is getting in the way. We've seen over the past couple of years how devastating government getting in the way can be to our livelihoods, to our careers, and just all around the economy. Right now we're all suffering, our wallets are hurting when it comes to getting groceries and getting gas, just the basics. And winter is upon us. We have these winter temperatures and people are really struggling. So let's have more of a libertarian mindset, and it needs to start at the local level here at the borough. And from there, we can make a change that can expand to the state and hopefully the national level, but definitely need to start at the local grassroots level at the borough. So again, my name is Meghan Trupp. I'm running for MatSu Borough Assembly District 2, which is the greater Palmer area. You can find me on social media, Meghan Trupp for Borough Assembly. I also have a website, votetrupp.com, and that's Trupp. I should have this up here. Not Trump, Trupp, which, it's pretty close, but TRUPP.com. And then I also have an email, megan.trupp at outlook.com. Those are different ways that you can get a hold of me. If you see me out in public, be sure to say hi. I'm a fairly friendly person. don't mind the RBF, you know, the resting, you know what face. No, I actually am a friendly person. I'm willing to have these conversations, meet you where you are, hear your concerns. When I've been door knocking, I've been hearing a lot of people feeling like they are not heard, and I'm here to hear your concerns and see how government can get out of the way, make the problems that you have less expensive, non-existent, or point you in the right direction through charities that can help you out, because that is what's going to have a much bigger impact on the concerns that you have, not something that can be solved through the borough, but getting out of the way for you.
Well, again, thank you so much for giving up your evening hours to be with me here today, and I really do appreciate it. And educated voters are how we make sure we take back control over our governments and our local representation, no matter what level, whether it be a city council, school board, assembly, and that's where I got 5 from. The way they lump it onto the borough website there, unless you keep on reading, all I kept reading was District 2. And the first 3 are assembly, and then the next 2 still say District 2, but it's school board.
There you go. Okay, that's what it was.
So that's how I ended up getting the number 5 out there and going.
I was like, oh, there's 2 more opponents I don't know about.
So yeah, no, at this point, there's only 2 people that I would vote for, and that is you, Megan, or Dana would be number 2 on this race, and the current incumbent that is in the race, now that I re-looked at it again, is the only one that I would not be voting for at all. And so it's very clear, and that's why I ended up saying there are 3 that I would choose out of the 5, because one of the school board members I do agree with, where the other one that's running I don't.
Okay, there you go.
So that's kind of where my thinking was earlier. So I thank you for correcting me on that and making sure everybody out there got to hear the right news on that too. And so at this point, anything else you would like to say, or I'll wrap things up and give my final, my 30-second elevator pitch to everybody else that's out there.
Nope, just make sure you check out votetrupp.com or look for me on Facebook. I have Meghan Trupp for Assembly on Facebook. You should be able to find me there. It's not a very common name. It's Trupp, not Trump. It's not Trump, it's Trupp. I get that all the time, especially over the phone. So thank you so much for having me here, Bert. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience and educate them more about what is going to be on their ballot.
Well, thank you for being here. And for those of you that are just joining us right now on Facebook or YouTube or on Twitter, or you're watching this on our website, please take the time, like and share this video. It's folks like you that help keep and expanding our reach to everybody else that is out there, and making sure that they all get to learn and educate themselves before they vote. And if you're not set up to get notified, make sure you hit that notified or subscription or follow us on all of these different locations. And we can be found at Politadick everywhere, including Rumble. We now have a Rumble channel. You can go to rumble.com/Politadick there. Please follow us there, and make sure you subscribe. As soon as we hit 100 people on Rumble, we will be able to live stream to them, not just have the uploaded copy that'll be about a day later from now. You'll find this video on Rumble. And the way you can help us make it there now, not later, is by subscribing and making sure you get notifications when we go live there. Whether you like to be on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, and or there on Rumble, is the whole trick to each one is just hit that notification bell and make sure that it's set to get all notifications. Otherwise, they will selectively choose whether or not they will let you know I'm live. So that's something always to be wary of while you're out there. The one last thing that you can do is please go to our website at politadick.com and click that support button. All proceeds go right back into expanding what we are doing. You can see it there on the screen right now that you just scan the code that's in front of or underneath the name, and it will literally take you to each location. Snap a picture of it right now, and I found that if you blow up the picture on, say, your phone and then touch the QR code, your phones are now smart enough to read that picture's QR code and we'll take you directly there to open up the page so that you don't even have to type a thing into your phone. Just snap, click, open, expand a little bit bigger, touch that QR code, and away you go. You're off and running. Save you guys all a little bit of time. All proceeds go right back into expanding everything we do, keeps expanding our reach to all of you, keeping you informed, doing what mainstream media refuses to do, uncut and unfiltered. You guys all have yourself a great evening, and do not forget to like and share.